So now we've imported the router module, we want to actually import it as a dependency to our ng module. Now we've got our passenger dashboard module, which is our custom one. So what we'll do is add the router module below. Now it's not as simple as this. We actually have to create a method on the router module. And you can see we've got two here. We've got forChild and we've got forRoot. So what we actually need is forRoot. What we're going to do is pass a variable called routes in. Now above here is where we're going to define these routes. Optionally, in your own projects, you can define these in their own files. However, because we have the actual components available that we might want to route to, it might make sense to keep them in the module. So our routes are going to be of type routes, and you can see the capital R, and all these routes are an array. So when we actually split these onto a new line, we'll start to create an array of objects. Before we actually do this, we will go up here and import this routes definition, just so we can keep track and make sure that we're actually implementing things properly, and TypeScript will give us the auto completion such as path. So for our base component, we're going to say it's going to have a path of nothing. So this is technically going to be, in quotes, the home page. So what we're going to do is in fact call this the home component. Now we haven't actually defined the home component yet, so we'll do that momentarily. However, because it's an empty string, we want to use this path match property and we want to say full. So when the path is completely empty and we want to make sure it's full, i.e. that it is in fact a completely empty string, we want to use the home component. So let's go ahead and create this home component. And what we're going to do is put it in the same directory as here. So we'll just simply add this file. We'll do home.component.ts. So we've just got the component. As usual, we will import the component decorator from and then Angular/core. We'll create the component metadata. We'll do the selector and give it a value of app home. So to be a valid web component, it actually needs a dash in the middle. Home on its own as an element is technically incorrect. So we're going to call this one app home just to keep things generic. All it's going to do is have a template, and we're just going to create something simple inside. So we'll do a quick div inside of here. And we will say airline passenger app. Now all we need to do is export this class home component, and that's basically our home component that we're going to use as our base route. So before we can even use this, what we need to do is go into the app module and import this component. So what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this one, and we'll move this up. I'm going to rename this one to home component, and then I'll change app to home. So you can see that it's found the home component. This is no longer red. However, we have a new declaration, so we need to register it in this app module. Now the next thing we need to do, because our app component is currently rendering passenger viewer, we need to use something called the router-outlet. Now the router outlet is a directive via the router, which is essentially a placeholder for where our components will be injected. So when we route to a component, the router outlet then tells the component where to go. So this is pretty much it. This is all we need to set up. Now let's go back to this routes and just recap what's happening here. So we have a constant called routes. It's of type routes. We don't technically need this. However, it's a good convention just to type these. Then we're going to say it's going to have an empty path. The component that we want to render is in fact this home component. So it's just going to be the boring component that says airline passenger app. We're using path match full to match that empty string. So what we can do now, because we've actually set this up, we've called forRoute, we've passed our routes in, so we can go ahead and check this out in the browser. So you can see our form and everything that we've done before has completely vanished. Now if we inspect element, you can actually see this router outlet here. Now this is basically a placeholder for our application. So you can see app home has been rendered below this router outlet. So this is essentially where our components will be dynamically created when we change routes. So for instance, if we wanted to go to /settings, something like this, this is where we would then inject the settings component. However, we're going to tie in our passenger application as we continue through these videos.